Now it's time to turn our attention to the other piece of that front office puzzle, the general manager. Let's welcome back in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. Jake, appreciate it as always. Is it a good sign that Jimmy Haslam wants the head coach and the general manager married together? I think in the past we haven't had that with the head coaching searches a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it's a unified approach. It has to be. I think you have to have two guys who have the same vision, the same thought process. I think it's so important to be married there, and I don't think you want any dissension, because the only way things go right there is if you hit everything out of the park. And then the only way you're going to hit everything out of the park is if you're, one of the luckiest individuals ever involved in football. There are just going to be wrong decisions made, but you have to trust your processes. And I think that's where aligned people at two positions, head coach and GM, really, really help. So I think it is a wise approach. Now, whether that's, if they hire one of the two coordinator options, aligning somebody with their background and their vision, or if it's McDaniels bringing over one of the guys he works in New England with, I think it's going to be important to make sure that there is no dissension between head coach and GM. There is no separate reporting to the head or to the owner. None of that nonsense. It has to be a unified approach between the head coach, GM, all the way up to the owner.
When you look at the Patriots, Caserio, Ziegler, Josh McDaniels, are you at all concerned? I mean, the one missing piece from that is Bill Belichick, and that's a guy that's probably the head coach and the general manager.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick. I think you probably can cover up a lot of mistakes based on how well Bill coaches guys up. And even Josh, too. I don't think New England has drafted all too well at the top of drafts lately, but they have taken mid-round, late-round, and free agent talent and just worked wonders with them. And to be fair, Josh is a big part of that, but Bill Belichick in this air quotes Patriot way has been the biggest part of that. So there is a little bit of cause for pause there, which comes with if he's going to bring Caserio, if he's going to bring Ziegler, if they're going to make something outside of the box. If those two guys stay in New England, they bring in somebody like Scott Pioli. I don't know who that is yet. The John Carroll guys there in New England, and their connection with Josh means probably one of them. Ziegler probably comes with him. I do think that there has to be, some uniform approach to picking high in the draft, because they're going to make an important selection at 10, and then sort of looking at how they improve their draft processes lately. Because guys like Sony Michel, guys like N'Keal Harry, who they picked this year, they have not picked all too well at the top of draft. So I think that they, will aim to try to maybe switch up some of their approach there. Maybe Bill's had the ultimate word and likes some guys. I don't know. There's just things we don't know there. But, the good thing is that they've been able to overcome it with quality coaching, and Josh has done the best he can with the offensive talent there. So you never know who's making the ultimate decision in New England. You probably presume it's the guy with 6 Super Bowl rings and is making most of those decisions. So it's going to be a wait-and-see approach on all that. The good thing is you feel pretty solid about the coaching being for those guys is going to be pretty solid. And I think you got to be careful, too, comparing New England head coaching hires of late in the Bill Belichick tree, because I think it's gotten better since the Roman Cannell, Charlie White's days. Matt Patricia had, Detroit competing. I think early in the year they were really competing well. Lost a couple close games. I think they had some officiating issues, but they did a really nice job until Matt Stafford got hurt. Then Brian Flores took one of the least talented teams in NFL, the least recent history in Miami, and won 5 games with them. So I don't think the same way we talked earlier about being nervous about Freddie Kitchens, repeating the Freddie Kitchens mistake in the next hire. I think you have to throw that out the window. I think you have to do that too with the New England assistant stuff, because they've been better. And even I shouldn't be remiss to mention Bill O'Brien, who although he's had some ups and downs, he's been sustainable, and he's gotten the Texans to the playoffs quite a few times, and obviously they're still alive now. So I think that there could be a revisionist history stuff that goes on there with New England assistants, and hopefully Josh can, if he's the guy here, continue trending that in the right direction.
When you look at that and the way the Patriots seem to find guys that other people discard, is that coaching? How do you do that? I mean, Danny Shelton is starting as their nose tackle this year, and that's a guy that couldn't find the field for the Browns for a long time.
Yeah, I think obviously it's an approach that is concrete, an approach that is a system based type of thing where they're looking for certain guys with strengths and weaknesses, and they know how to work those people, into their offense or especially into their defense as well. I'm not sure who would run Josh's defense, but I think that they have a unified approach to scouting. They know what they're looking for, and when they look for special strengths and weaknesses of guys, they know in the mid rounds these are guys that we want to get because they can do X, Y, and Z really well. And I think that that's something that gets lost when the Browns go coach to coach to coach. Is that your personnel scouting department is always trying to find what are we looking for in players, and if it changes year to year to year, and what you're looking for in terms of strengths and weaknesses, it means like guys like Jannard Avery get washed out, or possibly Rashard Higgins get washed out because the coach doesn't want to use them, or even some of the likes of Joe Schobert get washed out. Those guys that we've seen come through and leave and thrive in other places, like Jordan Poyer, the safety for the Bills, are guys that were here. They're mid-round to late-round guys that were brought in because one staff runs one thing one way, and then all of a sudden they don't want them with the next staff. So they have to be. That's one big thing that you would hope that they can get ironed out. Is we're looking for these players over the long haul, and we can get players that have these characteristics, they have these athletic abilities, they have these testing numbers, and we believe that they can fit in this plan. That's where you start to really see the effective mid to late round picks being made. Teams like, over the long haul that have been New England, Atlanta, the Saints, those types of places that have been pretty consistent over the long haul, been able to do that kind of consistently, which is a unified approach in the type of players they're looking for and hitting on some of those guys mid to late round.
Fair to say, Jake, that all players have holes in what they can do, and the successful franchises kind of realize what guys' limitations are and don't ask them to do it. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, and I think that's something that New England has done particularly well, especially with you're looking at what Josh has been a big part of here, which has been in New England, I should say, which is developing a scheme for his players that fits to their strength. I think year to year to year, and even sometimes mid-year, they change their approach week to week, and I know their defense does this, and I think Josh has been a big part of this too on the other side of the ball, which is fitting their scheme to their players and going after mismatches, that sort of stuff, which I think is important. Sometimes coaches get into this thing where we have to always have this same scheme that we always structure. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right week to week, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right, year to year. So I think they've done a nice job of being able to take, they have this broad structure, they have this idea of what they are, who they want to be, but they tweak little things in between to make it fit every week. So I think that that's what they do really well is they look for certain types of players, but then they're also able to sort of change and tweak and be adaptive to the people they have on their roster.
The other thing I'll ask you, how much, you always talk in here about the Patriot way. How much of that is legitimate that, they just know how to win? Is that something that's maybe an intangible that a guy like McDaniel could potentially bring with him? McDaniels, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that you can, obviously. I think you have a culture in New England that is effective. I'm not sure what those intricacies are that they do. They could have tricks of the trade in the air quote Patriot way that he can bring with him. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know that the culture of New England has sort of been self-sustaining for a while now. It's probably 15 years or so of sustainability in that regard after they won all those early 2000 Super Bowls. So I think that the culture is what you make it. The culture is coaches that hold their players accountable, front offices who go out and get players with high character and leadership positions on your team, and then you go from there. And then hopefully the players take care of it. And the trickle down effect happens. I don't have the secret recipe to creating the right culture or the Patriot way or anything, or I wouldn't be talking on this show. But I do know that they've done it right. They've done it right for a while. They have the right people who understand what it takes to hold players accountable, to hold coaches accountable, and it trickles down from the head coach down. So hopefully, what you would hope is that Josh has understood what it takes. He learned from his errors in Denver, some things that he did wrong, maybe some hubris to happen there for him to learn in his younger 30s. It's a decade older. He's gone back to New England and saw New England go through it. People forget that New England went through a dip from about 2000 to 2014 as far as competing for Super Bowls. They were winning their division, but they weren't winning Super Bowls. And then they got back to the top of the peak there, 2014, 2015. So the hope is that he has learned. He's applied, all these different personnel changes and even coaching changes. He's been able to learn what it takes to get his coaches on the right path, learns what it takes to cultivate his offense and his overall approach and his relatability to players, all in that time too.
We'll mention just quickly Andrew Berry. That's another guy that was here with Sashi, kind of left, and potentially could end up back. He's a guy that's pretty well thought of in NFL circles.
Yeah, I think Andrew did a great job when here. He's a real grinder. I think he does a nice job of blending numbers-based approaches, analytical approaches with real live scouting. And a big-time participant at the Senior Bowl for the Browns over the years, and very well respected. The Eagles were very excited to get him. And if he's brought back to play a GM role, even if it's somehow with Josh, I don't know, or if they go a different route, I'm all in on getting Andrew back in the organization because he's a sharp football mind. And I think he would do a really nice job. And he will be a GM, whether that's Cleveland or somewhere else in the near future. I do believe he's smart enough. He's good at what he does, respected enough in the industry that I think he will be in that role soon. So if that happens to be Cleveland, fans should be pretty excited about that.